Than 2 months left in his term. On December 4th, 1992, President George H.W. Bush ordered the Pentagon to dispatch 28,000 U.S. Marines to Somalia. At the time, the East African country was being torn apart by a civil war and well on its way to becoming a failed state. The outgoing president characterized the military mission in humanitarian terms, calling it God's work. To tell us more about what that mission meant for Somalis and how Bush is remembered there, I'm joined by VOA senior Somali editor Mohammed Olad Hassan. Welcome back.
Thank you, Vincent.
Yes, so you were there in Somalia, much younger than we are today.
Absolutely, I was a teenager,
Yes.
I remember, yeah.
But what are your memories? How do you remember the U.S. soldiers arriving in Mogadishu?
Basically, when you ask this question to any Somali, wherever in the world, the only thing they will tell you is that they remember an operation that was on their way, saving people from starvation to death. And my remembrance, I remember I was teenage, and I remember it was, I think, 9 December 1992, when the first U.S. military forces arrived at Mogadishu beach. People lined into the streets, and they were trooping to the beach. They were greeting the American soldiers who were coming from the sea with amphibious cars. And the thing I remember is that some who couldn't go there because they were starving in the streets of Mogadishu and the houses in somewhere in Mogadishu and other were in Somalia. They were all watching what was going on in Mogadishu from only available local TV at the time. And people were very happy to see American soldiers coming, and they thought that this was the end of their starvation and death.
Yeah. So some people have focused on the downing of the helicopter, and sometimes forget why the U.S. military, the U.S. soldiers went to Somalia. Can you just give a little background as to what was really happening at that time?
Well, as you know, the Somali collapsed in 1991 when Siad Barre was ousted from the power, and then the militiamen turned to each other, took their guns and fought in the streets of Mogadishu, villages, looting people, killing civilians, and the country fell into the chaos, and people were dying for no reason. Warlords started to divide themselves into smaller fiefdoms where militiamen, clan-based militiamen, were controlling by themselves. So it was a kind of a whole chaos in the whole nation. And the aid could not reach Somalia. Some people were starving because of drought and because of lack of food shortage, water shortage. So when this happened, the world were watching, and Somalis remember the United States was the first country to respond militarily, to intervene and stop the militiamen and warlords, say, stop looting and killing your people. We are here to help the international community to reach you with aid. So it was something that nobody could imagine at the time.
And although it was the last few months before he left the presidency, he started that process. And of course, the soldiers stayed on until that tragic downing of the helicopter.
What still Somalis remember is not only the operation itself. The operation happened. The people knew that it was the greater operation from the United Nations was on the way too. But what people still remember is Bush himself was the first world leader who visited Somalia. He went to the Baidoa town, about 240 kilometers southwest of Mogadishu, where people were dying in hundreds and a number reached thousands. So what they remember is that he said, we are here to help you, and we will no longer accept the world watch you as you starve to death.
Actually, I was just looking at the pictures of him in military fatigues, taking pictures with the U.S. young soldiers there. So in a way, regardless of what happened, and we know for over 20 years again, Somalia didn't have a stable government, there is a positive kind of image of him, at least initially, as to the contribution he made and the intention that there was of helping people in Somalia.
Well, everybody knows what made the image later bad. Because of the warlord, General Muhammad Farah Aidid, who at the time fought against the international community and the U.S. soldiers. 18 American soldiers were killed on the streets of Mogadishu, in the streets of Mogadishu. But people do not, most of Somalis do not consider this as something bad that came from the Americans. But they consider it as something bad that came from the warlords who were trying to prevent the international community from helping the Somali people. The legacy Bush left Somalia is that he was a kind leader who came into the right time, into the right place, and who saved some people from dying with starvation, mainly children and women.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Mohammed, thank you very much for joining
so
us and
much.
giving us those insights.
Yeah.
Well, that's Mohammed Olan, VOA senior Somali editor.